Well, the bandwidth seems to be fine, but anyway, Melissa, thank you very much. All right. So I'm George
Sorry for
Shepard, Chair of the
the delay.
Conservation Commission, and I call this meeting of the Conservation Commission to order. Members present include myself, Sylvia, Dan Wells, and Melissa, and remotely connected and our conservation agent, Megan Sullivan, and Noel Beeland, who's the conservation administrator for the town. For this meeting, the Conservation Commission is convening by telephone or Zoom web conference as posted in the town website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. Excuse me. Accordingly, please be aware that other participants may be able to hear you, and anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All participants should keep their phones or microphones muted unless recognized by me. So I will call on each speaker as identified to address the commission. If you wish to address the commission, please click the raised hand icon and ask to speak by posting a request in the chat feature. Please identify yourself at the start of the remarks, name, address, otherwise Carlisle have known, and we'll continue from there. Thank you. All
Thanks.
right, we are go.
Yeah, if I don't know who wants to take the lead, but you're welcome to share your screen if you'd like and let us know what you found at the dam.
I think we'll
Well,
let
do we have
Doria speak, just having the figures and having done the GPR work out there. So, speaking as our subcontractor, Doria, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks. I was hoping Chris or you would say something about the background, and what maybe you can fill in towards the end. Um, so the goal was to try to see if we can find tunnels, and maybe
And be
and other voiding that might be associated with the activities of the beavers. And what you see here, let me share my screen. Let me see if I can share my screen. There we go. All right. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Cool beans. All right. So this is your dam. Um, what we were doing was initially we were supposed to go from this access point to that access point and try to look for voids in between. But while we were out there, we had some time and we collected some more data. So basically, these little squiggly lines. Um, so we actually hooked a GPS to the GPR system, which thank God we didn't have to set up a grid for the whole thing. We did set up a grid as we got closer to the trees and the canopy because we weren't sure how affected the GPS would be. And as it turned out, not terribly. But anyway, we did a couple of grids, these black dotted lines. So essentially, we did, the whole top of the dam, and because the water levels were low, we actually went down to water level, and since they were frozen, we could actually literally walk onto some of the, go from some of the exposed sediments there that were frozen, onto ice and vice versa. So we got some lines that were actually into, the impoundment area. Um, so I guess there's some advantages of working in the cold. What you see here is the AutoCAD superimpose. I'm going to get rid of my lines here. Let's see if, yeah. So that
Can
is
you tell us what the color coding means?
so the color coding is because this software program is not sophisticated enough, and it actually imports, polygons as filled polygons, and it's not as sophisticated as AutoCAD itself. But what it does is it allows us to drop, Sumco's base map and your AutoCAD into my data, put my data on top of it, and then send it back to you guys.
Okay, thank you.
So some manipulation might be necessary. I believe I supply the AutoCAD and the GIS formatted shape files. So, all right, so that is that. I'm going to try to see if I can actually, there we go. So then what I did was, we're going to go back here. So with the radar, okay, the radar is very sensitive to changes in moisture. It is very sensitive to changes in density. So the thing is that the idea is that the radar, we push it along and we get a reflection from, say, the original, soil horizons, and then you encounter a cavity like a tunnel, and you see that reflection, and it produces a rather strong reflection, especially if it's water filled. But you also get other types of reflection anywhere where you have a contrast in electrical properties, such as conductivity. So I'll leave it at that. But in the radargram, because you have the antenna itself, the radiation pattern of the antenna is, let's see if I can find it, is like a four-leaf clover. And I'm going to navigate here. Methods. And essentially, antenna radiation pattern. There we go. So you're moving this antenna along, and literally you get these huge lobes in front of it, and the antenna can detect up to 5 feet fore and aft of, the antenna, and maybe 2 to 3 feet side to side. So it's a really large radiation pattern. And when I say radiation, it's like it puts out the same energy, the same bandwidth as a cell phone, but 100 times less. So you're basically using EM, high frequency EM, to image the subsurface. And what you get is, here's your cavity that might look like in real life. As you're moving the transmitter receiver along, you get this reflection, and it appears as this very broad, like upside down U type of reflector with these tails and things like that. A flat lens might appear more flattish on the top, but you still see these diffraction patterns, as a result of it. And it's really, what you do with the radar. So here is such a diffraction pattern. We call them hyperbolic reflectors. And really, that's because, again, your antenna is starting, off, a few feet off, going right on top, and then leaving. It's moved continuously. And where it says scan 345, you're right on top of it. So the idea is for us to convert this gobbledygook that you're seeing, horizontal distance versus an approximate two-way travel time, or velocity or depth, and then you want to convert it, from this line scan image to something that everyone can understand. But I wanted to show you what we look at initially in the field. We get these lines, all these cross sections, and you color code them based on how big a reflection you're seeing in the field. So you're assigning, the white and the gray are for the highest amplitudes reflections. And the other difficulty is, you're getting both the transmit pulse and the reflections lost in the same, image. So you get really strong reflections at the top, and, you can get real information buried in that. So all of this is very confusing to look at. All of this is very highly subjective. So what we like to do, the idea is to create plan view type images that everybody can, follow along better. So, here's our little example radar scan, and there we go. And basically what you have is, again, a horizontal distance in feet from the start of your line for when you turn on the radar, and we're going to approximate the depth based on how fast the waves are traveling into the soil and bouncing back and again. And then what we're doing is, you see all these little magenta rectangles. For each scan, you're breaking up this image, this whole line scan image or radargram, into a series of cells. And you tell a computer program, okay, return me the highest amplitude cell, for that cell, the highest amplitude for that cell. And then what it does is it says, okay, I'm going to look down, and I'm going to look, forward, and I'm going to look behind me, and I'm going to look left and right from where I am. And there's a better picture of it here. There's the amplitude, right? And then you're looking for the correlation. So basically, it's coming up with a value based on how reflective it is. And what we do with that value is, I don't know how many of you are familiar with topographic maps. I know as a sailor, you are, George, I believe.
Yep, you're right.
So what a contour map does, it takes like quantities of something and it shades them with similar colors means you have similar values. So in the case of these radargrams, the highest, strongest amplitude correlates with the highest, strongest, red and the yellows on this plan view image. And what you're seeing in this plan view image is a water leak. They were losing about 2,000 gallons a day and they couldn't figure out where it was coming from. But essentially, the linear high amplitude or moderately high amplitude represents a pipe. That's another pipe. Where the two pipes came together, there was a leak. White means there's no data. And we saw this kind of like swirling pattern. But again,
Doria, can I ask a question?
sure.
How wide is the beam that the GPR is actually transmitting down?
So fore and aft, right at the surface, is about 5 feet, 4 to 5 feet.
No, I'm thinking of degrees.
And
Is
down,
it
15 degrees from
okay.
horizontal. And so then, that's an issue, that is 15 degrees from horizontal. What we have to do is, basically we take a lot of data and we try to get rid of that bias. So you're only looking at the stuff that is right beneath the antenna.
Okay, so are
There are
you
a couple
using
of-
AI techniques to do this?
Oh no, we have we have computer programs.
Okay, thank you.
We tell the computer, to process it a certain way. And one of those things that we use is a program called GPR Slice. So if you go to www.gpr-survey.com, you should be able to see the program and examples from the program. A friend of mine actually wrote the program. It's really great. Um, but anyway,
All right. Sorry, I interrupted. Keep going with your uh,
that's fine. Any other
presentation.
question, interrupt me. You know, I'm getting to the point of showing you what we actually got. I just want to make sure everyone understands how we got here. So basically, what we do with all those depth slices, or all those little incremental boxes, right? They
Hmm.
each have a certain Z or depth increment, and we in that depth increment for this survey, um, the um, the antenna went down about 12 and a half feet. So we got to see into the native soil.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. And the antenna that we used is actually a newer system. It has two antennas built in. A 400 megahertz, which is the lower frequency, that went about 12 and a half feet down, and then a higher frequency, basically a 800 megahertz antennas housed in the same thing. So what I am trying to do here is show you something called MIG, or migrated. Oh yeah, it's a little finicky to use, but these animations are essentially available on the website, on the Dropbox. So I guess this is close enough for this presentation. So so basically, what you're looking at, we have a different color scale. So instead of red, the rainbow colors, we have the red and the yellow, red, orange, yellow, and then even black as very high to moderately high anomalies. We use a process called migration to basically collapse those broad reflections so they're a single point. And what you're looking at is a contour of those points. And
So let me just make a comment, Doria. So the point is, when it's yellow or red, there's a void there somewhere.
well, there's a high amplitude reflection, which could be caused by a number of things, including a void, including less dense soil that's filled with water.
Okay.
So, in other words, like, you could have a collapse feature, and it's less dense. Like, for instance, a chimney type sinkhole happens in many instances, but in a particular instance, if you are jacking in a pipe and you dislodge a cobble on your way in, and you get a void space above the pipe, you get
Hmm.
collapsing of that material, so it gets loose. Um, so basically, you're actually, like, having that loosely packed column of soil will also show up as a high amplitude reflection.
You're also
Got
seeing
it.
that in the
Thanks.
density of the soil, just in the difference between a gravel or a cobble versus a peat, right? And the concern here, or one of the concerns here, is that it's a cranberry bog that has a peat base to it, so that's going to have a different response, right, than a gravel or a rock or even a hole, right?
Right. But we try to see the big picture.
Yep.
We've done dozens of peat bogs, or cranberry bogs, for purposes of, having them restored. And we were able
Hint,
to.
hint, Megan.
I'm just saying
I
that
got the hint.
the radar works really well in mapping that peat boundary, and basically, we put the radar in a sled and we tow it, with that little GPS antenna, and we go back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. But you see a continuous reflector. That's the point I'm getting at. Whereas with these, with these features that we're seeing, you're actually seeing, and I gotta find it now. Where is my screen? Um, you know, we're actually seeing, I'm going to stop the share and then reshare it because I have no idea where I'm at. Screen. So, basically these little red and yellow blips, and I'm going to enlarge this just so you can see a couple of them. Well, that's too much enlarging. That there's one disadvantage of this program. It's a little fussy. So like in the figures that we finalized, we've removed the red of the dam from the AutoCAD colors, and so you could see like over here by hole 22, you've got this red and orange irregular blob that's like right on top of it and next to hole 22.
And that's
Here are
one
other.
that's pretty obvious to see even just in the field, visually, not even with GPR. That one's a pretty obvious hole there.
But if you keep an eye on it, as we're scrolling deeper and deeper and deeper, right? It's still there. It's a hole. And, and then, it seems to peter out, but maybe not. I mean, so maybe it's a shallower hole, but it actually looks like to the east of it, you've got another hole. Like, so maybe it was at a different level. So we try to characterize these potential voids. What are from maybe, collapse features from a void, loosely packed soil, versus, say, organics, versus a cobble, versus, heterogeneities within, the dam. Like one of the things that I've discovered talking to Chris and Travis is that when you get a certain depth, you actually like start to see, and I'm going to scroll all the way down. Here you see the pipe, right? And you see voiding around the pipe, and which is consistent with, there's hole 7 right there. So maybe the critters have been using, near the pipe to get in, and, kind of, you can kind of see that they're, connected at depth, couple feet down. But the point is below, say, 3.5 feet or so, like something over here. That could be an organic, deposit that wasn't cleared out of there, during, construction of the dam. And you see a better example. This is the highest frequency, therefore the most shallow penetrating radar. But at this frequency, you can resolve, a void potentially as small as 2 to 3 inches. And the whole idea, remember, we collected all that redundant data back and forth and back and forth. By making all that redundant, it has a beam width side to side 2 to 3 feet. But by making lines, say, a foot apart or 6 inches apart or whatever, you can basically increase the resolution of what you can see. So some of these voids, might be from a void that's only a couple inches thick, that by definition, you're not supposed to see if it's just a single scan. But by pummeling it with lots of scans and looking at the redundancy and plotting, the amplitude of reflection, you can bring out things that the humans can't see. So going back to AI, no, this was just a very clever program that somebody developed. Anyway, so any questions before I proceed?
Well, my question is, we're curious about where the voids or the beaver incursions are. So how do you translate this data into saying we have a problem here, but not there?
Well, even when we plot amplitude of reflection, reflections are non-unique. They can be caused by different things. But
Understood. Yeah.
but say when we look at things as a plot with depth, sometimes you get near surface artifacts from, it might have rained the previous day, and when you went back to the site, it wasn't raining as much. So, but the further down you get, I mean, we look for ground truth. I mean, do we see any holes? And we took GPS values of where we saw some features and we plotted them. And we also, the AutoCAD, that Sumco provided to us also showed the GPS locations of these holes and other features. So basically, I would have, if something repeats with depth, I'd be concerned. Like over here at the corner of grid 2 and the main front part of the dam, you kind of see something that is there and not really going away at depth, kind of like maybe even expanding. And it's only when it's, much deeper that it seems to go away.
So
Go ahead.
when you say grid two, I don't see that on the plot. I don't know how to look at it. Way over on the right, I
You
see
see,
a grid two. Yeah, I
yeah,
see that. So, but it seemed to be that you were
okay.
referring to other parts of the dam. So I'm confused.
Right. So when you compare where this part of the dam joins that part of the dam,
Yeah.
in this area, in the shallower depth slices, there looks like that there could be a void. And there's a
Okay.
hole
All right.
here, and then there's an anomaly there. So we compare what we see. We see, something big there. We see holes there, and we see also holes there. And we just step through to see how it might change with depth. Now,
Okay. Thank you.
And
okay,
George, with respect to the areas that we're looking at, sort of that main central portion of the dam that Doria's mentioning, that's wide open, right, as far as GPS coverage. So
yes.
Yep.
that was, where there's good GPS signal. She had set up grids in kind of tucked under the tree cover. So that's why we have the grid 1 and grid 2. So that's kind of maybe not called out by lines here, but that was the concept that she's talking about. So grid 1 on the left, grid 2 on the right, kind of as those trees come in, but along the embankment area.
All right. Well, thank you for the explanation. One other question. Do you actually change the frequency of the GPR to
Nope,
try to get more detail?
you are simultaneously recording 800 and 400 megahertz at the same time.
Okay.
This
Thank you.
particular GPR has a built-in GPS that has an accuracy of about 5, maybe even 4 inches, to about maybe 12 inches. It's nice and accurate, right over where there's no overlying trees, and then I mean, even when we looked at figure 1, you could see that it wasn't too bad. Um, you know, the so the grid that I was talking about is like a rectangular grid. Um,
Okay.
and the lines we did were roughly every 1.25 feet apart. So, and then there was an obstruction here, so we couldn't go all the way out. So basically, it's not bad. Even under the trees, it's not bad at all. I think we could have just as easily made it all GPS rather than, grid 1 and grid 2, have them gridded separately. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Okay. So those depth slice images, we have many areas where basically your we have many different slices, maybe 20, 16, something like that, where we're looking at the various depths. And over here, I'm gonna just scoot that over, and I am going to, let's see, 3, that. So this is a cumulative plot from all the areas of high reflectivity, areas of, high reflection. All right, here's hole 10. You've got a bunch right there towards the impoundment area. Hole 10. Oh, that's a typo. That must be hole 11. Excuse
We
me.
got it.
Yeah. There's
11,
a
yes.
concentration right there, but there also looks like over there and over there, maybe those are ways in for the beavers. Who knows? Hole 12. I see a concentration over here, over there. Not so much on top of the dam, although, like hole 7, right? There's something to the northeast, that looks like it's in the shallowest. This is like up to a foot, really. So up to a foot, there's nothing. Most of the action is towards the impoundment area. And as you get, there's really not a lot going on at this culvert. Hole 15, hole 14, there's a lot of reflection between hole 13 and to the west. There seems to be a lot going on that might be worth checking out. Hole 20, 21, and 22. There's like, they're having a party down there, it looks like. And then you've got, some areas here that, could be a localized void.
Doria, how have you identified the hole numbers or hole locations? Is that an actual vertical or horizontal hole, or is that was your numbering?
I'm sorry, who's speaking now?
That was Travis.
Travis. This was on the AutoCAD.
Okay.
Yeah, this was on your AutoCAD. So some smart person from Sumco did this.
Oh, no, not from
That
us.
that was provided to us, but I think you're probably getting there, Doria, but you had a figure that shows sort of like proposed investigation areas relative to those holes,
Yes.
right? And so that's kind of translating like all of this comes to like what, 4 or 5 times as many observations, right? Versus those holes that were kind of recorded previously by others. Does that
Right.
sound about right? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe 3, 3
Okay.
times. Maybe less. But the thing is, again, radar is going to be very subtle. Even the subtlest reflections will show up. The subtlest changes in density will show up as a reflection. And so it's trying to target those areas where we have a lot of the similar reflections at depth, like vertically near hole 25. It occurs a lot. Like if we add the 1 to 2 foot thing and then the 2 to 3 foot, hole 17, it appears most of the action is 2 to 3 feet below the thing. Hole 7, there appears to be something going on deeper, to the west and northwest of hole 20. So I guess it's a combination of we have some ground truth. We don't, radar is still going to be subjective, even though we're trying to make it less subjective. But we made some recommendations, and that is on figure 6. Based mostly on the 800 megahertz data. And, basically we digitized some locations that if you were seeking to grout, you should go for it. But the thing is, some of these are in blue and some of these are in red. And, the cooler colors mean lower priority. Um,
And
now,
what's priority based on?
well, priority is based on um, how often we see the anomaly with depth, how dense those magenta cross hatchings are and things like that. You
So
know,
they're deeper, is what you're saying, right?
well, so they're in proximity to holes that already exist. But what I'm saying is, like for instance, this proposed 27, um, something like that. You can you can say, let's grout 10 of these. Let's see what we get. And and you find out that you put, I don't know, 3 cubic yards or 5 cubic yards into 27, but over at 32, you put in nothing. It wouldn't go in. It was a false positive. So, like 20, it put in a half. You know what I'm saying? Um, so my thought is by trying to differentiate these, you probably will be able to put more grout, into something like 16 than 17. Does that make sense?
I don't know that
George,
there's that many visual holes there. So how do we grout a hole that doesn't exist on the surface?
Um,
By
so,
luck.
George,
well,
could I ask a question, George, as
Yeah,
a
please
commissioner?
go for it.
So I apologize, I haven't missed the meetings leading up to this, but could someone just succinctly explain why we did this and what it means? I just don't, trying to understand the purpose.
Yeah, I can explain. So, in July when I started, there was sinkholes that were popping up. I believe they started before I was here. But because of those sinkholes, as we called it, we decided that we needed to do repairs on the dam to avoid a breach. And so we sought out Sumco to help us do that maintenance repair work. And they subcontracted out Doria, who did the GPR work, because before they were going to fill the holes and repair the dam, they needed to know the extent of what we couldn't see and the extent of the work. So now they're just explaining, what we can't see on the surface.
yeah.
And
Okay,
then after this, Sumco will do the actual repair.
Hmm.
so there's dozens of holes that need to be filled.
Well, not
It appears.
necessarily. I mean, I'm showing
And
you the location of anomalies.
okay,
And the thing is that sometimes it's near a hole. So these are the sinkholes that have developed. And Travis asked a question about, or maybe it was Chris, about like what percentage of the holes that we see on the surface, you know, um, are we, also seeing, you know, down below? Is
Oh,
it,
depth,
are
right.
we seeing 3 times as many down below, and that only a third of them are manifest, forget it.
Manifesting.
Thank you, manifesting. I've been up since 2 a.m. Sorry.
Oh,
Um, so essentially, the radar is just sort of like, this is what I think you have here, and there needs to be some, follow through with, okay, let's see how much we can put into this hole here. Does that
okay.
sound reasonable, Travis?
And just to follow up on that, so isn't this dam being rebuilt soon entirely?
Yeah, so there's kind of like two, I guess you can say repairs happening one after another. So, we're putting out to bid, a bigger repair project, which is what we got permitted. We had our order conditions for it, and we have a Chapter 253 permit from the Office of Dam Safety. But because the timeline on that was looking like we weren't going to be able to execute those repairs until spring or summer of 2026, and we could see that there was some significant holes in the dam. We decided that we needed to take more immediate action to make sure the dam didn't breach. So, before we put the project up to bid, we've hired Sumco to take care of this more immediate work. It's like almost emergency work, but not quite emergency. So I'm referring to it as maintenance work, because that's how the Office of Dam Safety told me to refer to it, so that we don't need a permit for this work.
So
Just
Dan,
the work
the,
in
the unfortunate thing here is that we're given season now is that we're likely doing any repair work that's not emergency work, but it's repair work would be early spring ahead of the next phase of the work there.
Exactly. Yep.
And I think there's probably some combination of, even just looking at the holes that are showing up on the GPR data that are on the upstream face of the dam that are probably within the phase 2 or the other projects work area, where it would get more impacted by the next project to happen.
So how do we interpret
Can
your
I ask-
results?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, Melissa.
George, thank you, George. So, Travis, I'm a little confused. I thought the point of this exercise was to make emergency repairs because we can't get to the phase 1 rebuild of the dam until spring. And we were concerned that the dam might breach prior to our undertaking those what we call phase 1 repairs under our NOI with ODS. So that's my first comment. But before you speak on that, my other 2 questions are: will Sumco be giving us a report with recommendations on things to do now versus in the spring when we can undertake the phase 1 repairs? And my next 2 questions, maybe for Doria, I don't understand how depth is measured. Obviously you could measure from the top of the soil, but as the dam crest, height varies as you go along the crest, those depth measurements don't really tell you very much about. That could be misleading in terms of, without knowing how it vacillates and undulates, it would be hard to interpret that. So I find that a little bit confusing and don't even understand that. And there was a 4th question I've forgotten.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Melissa, are you looking for an elevation as opposed to a depth below grade?
Yeah, I guess so, because a depth below grade means you have to know what the grade is, and the grade keeps changing. So showing depth below grade without any kind of normalization for elevation doesn't really tell you very much about where the holes are relative to, say, water level.
Right. I guess based on the topographic contours of the AutoCAD, it is a very good point in that even like the plan map view, you have the crest of the dam, and then you have the downstream side of the dam. There are 2 different levels there. So I do see your point.
Well, Doria, it's not even a matter of the difference between the crest and the downside. The crest vacillates, undulates. The crest is at more than a foot difference from one part to another. So understanding depth measurements from the soil level when the crest itself might, vacillate, between, for a foot or more from one place to another, makes it hard to understand, I guess, how water incursion from the imponded Martin Street Pond is going to impact, the dam from an emergency perspective.
So Melissa, let's talk a little bit of practical stuff. What are we asking for here? We know the beavers have created holes in the dam. We'd like to know where they are, how deep they are, and the question is, what do we have to do to make the dam safe from problems down the road. Am I incorrect?
No, I agree with you, George. And I would just add that, a hole at water level is a little more concerning than a hole at the top of the crest, especially at a part of the crest that's way higher than most of the crest.
I agree with you. So where it is over the depth extent certainly makes sense because the ones at the top are going to break first. So
Can I
is that
just-
something?
To,
Sorry, go ahead.
To some degree, I think that there's at least one hole at the top, at the crest of the dam that's impacted by a deeper hole and likely being washed out or being affected by holes at water level. And I think
George,
that's
can
the one that the town had identified as a sinkhole and maybe has fixed already at least once.
George, can I ask?
Sure.
So I grew up in the South Shore, as did Chris Spinney, who's also in this call. He may be silent. He's on the Land Steward Committee. We grew up with bogs. And I just want to know when you, Doria, when you look at this in terms of a risk factor of, say, 1 to 10, what do you feel if we're already scheduled to repairs in the spring and you make emergency repairs, what do you feel is the likelihood of this dam failing between now and I'll say June, whatever, versus other dams that you've looked at?
Well, I'm not an engineer, and a structural engineer or a civil engineer would probably be, or somebody with a lot more experience, to be able to make that judgment. I agree with Travis in that the one at the top that he showed me while we were out there is problematic, and the data shows that there's definitely something deeper that makes it connected to the impoundment face. It's substantially deeper, so that could be problematic. And there are other areas that look like they could be problematic in proximity to, say, the western the culvert towards the west.
So I guess I'm asking, problematic versus an emergency, and we should dial 911.
Right. And just to Brian's point, I think we should be hearing from Sumco, who is our contractor, about that. Isn't that why we hired them?
Yeah. Can I just chime in quickly? So I did have a dam engineer from Weston and Sampson go out to the dam back in maybe even September. They were the ones who looked at the dam and said, if your water level rises, you will probably get a breach in the dam. That's why we contacted Sumco to have us do this, what I was calling emergency repair, sooner rather than later. And so, is someone asking a question?
Yeah, Megan, did Weston and Sampson's tell you where we would likely get the breach?
In the spot that you can, there's like one obvious spot where there was the sinkhole that's still there, where you can see how it connects to the upstream slope. Just based on that, they said if water was to get in here, you are looking at a possibility of a breach.
Is that the only place they were worried about?
They were worried about the cut into the upstream slope, basically throughout the dam. But you can't see the whole extent, which is why she recommended that we do GPR like this and get a contractor who's familiar with working with earthen dams and has this kind of expertise, which Sumco does. And then since then, we worked to lower the water level, and Chris Spinney helped a lot with that. So we rerouted the water to go through the 5th Street Dam to keep it low on the Cranberry Bog Dam. Number one, to keep the water from breaching. So I don't think we're in an emergency situation where the water, I'm not a dam engineer, but how I see it is if the water stays low as it is and it doesn't move into those holes, then we should be okay. And Sumco has said that they're, going to do the work when the weather allows. So
Do what work? I mean, does it make sense? So I guess my question would be, should we share this? Should Sumco share their data with Weston and Sampson? We could pay an hour or two with Weston and Sampson to review the Sumco, to just have a discussion with Sumco and give us advice on to whether we need to undertake emergency repairs or not. We may not need to undertake any repairs with Sumco if we can, hustle on to phase one quickly enough.
Well, we already hired Sumco to do the work.
Well, listen, I'm not opposed to that. Our contract and our work is to provide a GPR work, which Dory has done, and to do the fills or do the repairs. We are not engineers, and so Weston and Sampson certainly is, and bringing them on board to review the data, I think, is certainly a valuable information. Whether that then means that we do the work ahead of phase one or phase one gets accelerated to be as early in spring as possible.
Okay, I'm happy either way. I just want to make sure we don't have a breach.
I think that given the water elevation and being able to maintain the water elevation with the outlet control structures, that water doesn't get to the point where it would breach.
So if the water didn't get to the point where it would breach, the question is like, until when, right? Because, we'll get rains in the spring and who knows? We don't know what the weather's going to do.
Yeah, and I think you've had some beaver activity that have built up dams around the outlet control structures. There's 2 outlet pipes from the pond into the cranberry bog. And by building up dams in front of those, the beaver activity in front of those has put hydraulic pressure against the dam that currently doesn't exist. And as long as it's maintained that there aren't beaver activity in front of those pipes, I think that the water elevation stays low enough that it doesn't breach. I think you've had, even in the past, some overwash situations at the dam, obviously from overtopping the dam, not just hydraulic pressure against it, from having a full pond.
So, Travis, do you have a recommendation based upon your data on what should be addressed now to minimize the chance that we have a breach?
Sure, George, before we get to that, could I ask, sorry to put you on the spot, Chris, but can we ask Chris Spinney, who's the LSC rep who is daily involved with the bog because he lives on it, to respond to what he thinks is water levels and perhaps a breach in the next, between now and whatever, June?
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, sure. Thanks. Yeah, I was trying to raise my hand when Brian said that, but I think the downstreams of the pipe, I mean, it's a lot of work. The beavers do build up downstream of the, I think you call it the west control device. They've been leaving the one on the east alone a bit since we cleared out the front. But the I'll call it the interim action that we took is to really lower the water level as best we could with that smaller flume. There's a big pile in front of the larger flume that really is the major water flow control device. The water level is way below that one. And I think the spring thaw is going to be overwhelm the smaller flume.
All right, Chris, you mean the flume to the far right, is that correct?
Yeah, yes, to the
it's a much smaller pipe. Yep.
Yeah, it's a 2.3 or 2 foot pipe, right? So that's really what's controlling now, but it's and it's very low. But I think when it may get overwhelmed and just be pipe flow at some point in the spring. And of course the beavers will attack it pretty frequently. And they're a little tough to keep up with in the spring. But yeah, I think that's like the interim action. So we're hoping that if we can't keep up with the water rises in the spring, that it would be safe to hold the water, to impound some water, right? I think that, the other thing that's happening is, and I don't really know, there's some ecological, I mean, we had a pond there, there's no pond, there were a few ducks in it in the spring, but I don't know what long-term effects that'll have on the little ecosystem there. Maybe the Phragmites will die, hopefully.
So Chris, my question to you was, are you concerned about a breach of the dam in the next few months?
Yeah, that was my point, right? In the spring, when everything starts melting, It's the water flowing is a drastic difference in the late summer and fall than early spring. It's quite a bit of flow in the early spring. I'm not sure that 3 foot, especially if the beavers attack it. We can try to keep it as low as we can, and maybe we just have to dig out the larger flume too and drop that some of the material in front of it.
Which
So
is
that's
one of the
my
things that we
question.
had talked about with Megan and
Two-
doing.
Sorry if I
About
can.
digging out the front.
Yeah, in front of the larger one.
Yeah.
So Chris, I'm just asking if we make both those two control structures fully functional, and at the lower board levels you put in, are you fearful that the dam itself will be breached by a?
Well,
No.
we won't be able to keep it as low as we have. I don't think, it's going to go up. It'll go up. It'll be in that hole that's at water level right now. I mean, the water is not below the front hole. It's about halfway down the hole, I'd say, right? And there's a couple of them over there on that west side. In fact, I think I exposed one by by falling in it. My foot disappeared when I was walking by one. So there are some right at the water level that it's not quite below those yet. So any higher, and it's going to put pressure on those holes, I think.
So my question is, are you in favor of us grouting some of them before the repair, or do you think that?
I think some of the obvious ones really should be, the one that's breached the surface and is down at water level. I mean, there's 2 or 3 that you can see at the water level that I think, would be good as to repair in early spring. That's my opinion, but I'm not the expert either. I just traipse through the mud a lot.
Thank you. I know you're the abutter. That's why I asked.
Do you have timing on the phase 2 project?
It's the phase 1 project. That's the
Phase 1
timing.
project.
Yeah, I don't know, but Megan can answer that. But I would just like to chime in and say it would be good to have Sumco and whoever the contractor is that we award for the phase 1 contract to be in good communication.
Sumco's happy to be the phase 1 contractor.
Yeah, so we just prepared the bid document and we should be posting it soon. I guess my only worry is my experience is every project delays, no matter how hard you try.
Really?
And so my only fear would be that, maybe that phase 1 construction doesn't happen until summer. I mean, we're planning on it happening in spring, hopefully, fingers crossed. But like I said, things always take a little longer than you think.
Yeah,
So
and
my
tough to do
fear
a
is,
pre-bid walk right now as well and have any
Yeah.
contractor look at that and have any sort of confidence in what they're doing.
okay.
So Megan, my question still
Whoa,
remains.
Travis, wait.
Oh,
Yep.
It's Melissa, sorry to be a pest.
Yeah.
Are you saying you wouldn't have confidence in bidding on the phase 1 project?
Well, I
Given
would
all
because
the
I've seen the
data we have?
site, but given right now 2 feet of snow on the site, I think anybody else looking at it is going to see 2 feet of snow
Oh.
and not be able to see the face of the dam that they'd be working
Yeah. Yeah, I was forgetting about all the snow.
on.
Yeah, and so my
It's been
worry is
compacted though, Travis. Everybody's skiing on it. But okay.
my worry is facing a delay. Like if we say, oh, let's just wait until the phase 1 construction, and then it gets delayed a little longer, and then we end up being very reactive instead of being proactive to the situation.
good
I think
idea.
we have the
Yeah.
opportunity to fix the dam to last us, and so that we don't have to feel so much pressure and be so reactive if, it gets delayed a little bit. I just want to avoid like having to close the trail all the time and people citing new sinkholes and just worrying about it. But that's just my opinion. I'm happy to execute whatever the commission feels most comfortable with.
I agree with you, Megan. It's just that if Sumco's not going to get started until sometime in the spring, if there's a chance we can roll the 2 projects into one, it'd be wonderful.
But my question is, do we know what we're going to do now in order to avoid the eventual potential, well, no, the potential breach. I haven't seen enough evidence in what I've seen today to say I'm going to fix that hole, this hole, that hole, or whatever it turns out to be. So how do we go finding a solution?
Well, I can certainly present to Travis, say, I don't know how long it would take to say, uh, grout a half dozen holes, say for instance, or how much time is allotted. So we can together look at, say, 6 or so of the worst ones and grout those. But the other thing I wanted to say, Melissa, is that I get the sense from Travis and from Chris that they're talking closer to mid-March, before you get the heavy rains, to where there's hopefully not as much snow on the ground, and that it warms up above freezing, so they can grout or do whatever remediation, because it's hard to work with frozen blocks of soil, and then later on deal with phase 1.
I'm cool with that.
Yeah, our intent was to get in this fall. Project got delayed a bit, just getting contracted and everything moving, and then having to do the GPR to be able to get in there. And we were actually pulling the sled with frozen ground even at that point. So the snow right now just doesn't allow us to do the work. And I'm certainly cognizant of the fact that in order to do the work, we need the snow to not be there, but the snow not being there means that we've also had snow melt. And, there's certainly concern that if snow melt builds up water in the pond, that puts pressure against the dam. I think that an interim step could be removing or digging out the soil that's in front of the larger pipe to allow that to be used as a conveyance of water from the pond to keep the pond water low.
That sounds like a good idea.
I think that's a great idea.
But I think that, as far as data and findings, I think that it would be a good idea to get Doria and was it Weston and Sampson
Yes.
on board just to get their take. I mean, they're the engineer on this. Doria's got the data and has done the work to do the GPR, and we're happy to do whatever construction work needs to be done, but we're not engineers. And I think that having Weston and Sampson on board with making recommendations based on Doria's findings and Doria kind of giving some feedback on what she's found, I think that ultimately they're the engineers that would be looking at this. I'd certainly be in favor of bringing them on board.
Can I chime in a little bit here? One of the things to be concerned about is right now, just about all the water coming in from Chelmsford, I believe, is going over to the 5th Street Pond and toward that dam. In the spring, well, first of all, we don't know how much more snow we're going to get. And one of the things that happens in the spring is we also get rain. And that rain also melts the snow. And so there could be considerably more water coming into the system. And the 5th Street Pond may have a limit as to what it can take before it starts to have a problem with its dam. So I think it would be wise and prudent, knowing myself what the upstream side of that dam. I've walked all along the dam number 1 at below pond level during a drought, and I know what it looks like under there. And I think if we can do some judicious patching of these holes in the dam, I think it would be a wise thing to do as soon as it's possible to do it. And I believe you can't have snow on it, and you probably don't want it to be frozen ground either. I have seen the bog in flood stage.
It looks like George walked away for a second. Do any other commissioners or anyone else have any comments or anything? Okay, so does it sound like it seems like we have some time because obviously it's winter and we can't do any actual work yet. So, to Travis's point, maybe in the meantime, whenever possible, I'm not sure if you can do this when the ground is frozen either, but dig up that, packed mud in front of that overflow structure so that we can better maintain the water level. And then I can try to see if I can coordinate with Weston and Sampson so we can understand what the data really means and what actions would follow that. And then we can come up with a plan of what can be executed in the spring once the conditions are a little better. Is that what the commission is thinking?
Yes, it is.
Yes, thank you, Megan.
Good summary.
Looks like Chris has a
Yeah,
question.
I was just going to um, talk about if the desire is to clear out that large flume, we call it, for lack of a riser, it's not really a flume, but the flashboard riser, the larger one. A couple of us dug out the smaller one, and I was surprised that how much that was basically all sort of beaver debris over there. So it was a little bit easy to dig. Is that something that the contractor will come in and do? Is it something you want some volunteers to help dig out? As soon as we can get a pick through it or whatever, because it's not going to be it's not going to be easy to get that done. So we're talking about thawing and digging out at the same time. They'll both be happening at the same time, really. And I guess my question is, do you want the friends to help doing that, or do you want just, because we could get over there as soon as it's available and start that process, or was the plan to bring in a machine for that?
So when do you think it will be available to actually do that? Are we talking about April or March or?
It's like predicting the
I have
weather.
no idea.
It's like predicting, how do we predict the weather, right? It can't be frozen when you start digging. But the ice is this has been a cold winter, so everything's pretty thick.
Oh,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
One benefit that we have is that the snow is insulating the ground. So the colder weather that we're getting right now is actually insulated by the snow that we got last weekend. So, it's kind of whatever frost was in the ground before we got the snow that would be the
I see.
concern.
Do you have a way to clean out in front of that?
Yeah, we could bring a small excavator in
Okay.
and dig that out.
Small excavator would have an easier time
Oh, yeah.
than digging by hand. So you could potentially get there weeks to a month, ahead of hand diggers.
Well,
Yeah, I
wait a
think
minute.
even at that, I think removing the soil in front of that flume is certainly valuable. But there's also boards in that that I think that should be removed as well, just to keep the water level low.
Yeah. Yeah, the
Can I ask
boards.
more about that? Because I know Chris is involved in it, but I think the boards right now are removed below.
They're right at the level of the dirt.
Of the dirt, yeah.
Yeah.
But if you remove the dirt, then you should remove the boards.
Oh yeah, right. That's the whole point, right?
So Travis, are you asking us to lower the boards below the current dirt level?
With the
on the large
removal of soil, removal of the boards, keeping them the same.
I'm sorry, can you say that again? Somehow I missed the first words.
Yep, removing the soil in front of the boards and removing the boards as well.
So to what depth? Could you explain?
I defer to Chris on that. I would go as low as possible. If the concern is hydraulic pressure against the dam, the less hydraulic pressure is created by having less water in the pond. So unless there's a concern to maintaining some water height in the pond, I would say take it as low as possible.
Okay. The environmental issue is, you can dig to China, but then we're going to kill fish
But
populations and
you
change.
can dig to China, but there's a pipe invert, and you obviously can't go any lower than that.
Thanks.
Right. It's already well below where the boards are right now.
Yep.
It's 10 feet, it's 8, I don't know, 4 feet below at least. Where they
Water
are.
level.
Yeah, the water level
Yeah.
is way below the boards. So the idea of digging it out and taking out the boards is to maintain the current water level, basically, or maybe a little lower, because it is like halfway through the hole. Yeah.
So Chris, can I ask, are you interested, or do you believe it's in the best interest of the town to lower the height, even though you lower than you made it now?
Well, it could go a little lower. It's not gonna be a disaster to go lower. I mean, I think it's better for that hole and probably easier to repair the one at the front, right? I mean, what do you do if there's water at the front hole? The front
So
of the
can you quantify? You're talking about one board, 5.5 inches, two boards, 7 boards. What do you think?
There's only about 3 feet. There may be 3 feet left of board, not even
Yeah.
3 feet.
It's
I'd
probably
say.
6 2x6s.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's even 6 left in there.
So
Took 'em
Chris,
out,
what
so.
are you talking about? Can you?
I'm saying that I don't think it's a problem lowering the water level. Water level's already pretty low.
My question is, what would you recommend?
I'd take the boards out, get it down to the water
Yeah.
level.
Right,
I
but
agree.
the boards meaning all 3 feet, or one board, or two boards?
I mean, we make it the same as the other side, basically. Bring it down to the other side or a little more.
I think taking 3 feet of boards out doesn't lower the pond by 3 feet because the
No.
boards are so much higher than pond elevation now. I think that
Right.
you could probably take almost all the boards out without affecting pond level at all.
Right. It's just going to control any
When water rises,
Detention
whether it can
space.
spill out there or not.
Right.
Right, and get ahead of it, right? Instead
Yep.
of being reactive. So I like that suggestion.
And no one's talking about, but this water is bifurcated. It doesn't all go to dam number 1. Some of it goes to the Fifth Street Dam, which Chris knows about because he lives near there. And we can also make adjustments on that side if we need to, if there's some fear of a breach.
So, Brian, how do we monitor the situation so we know when we need to take action?
I use a Ouija board myself.
I can't wait to play poker with you.
I would defer to Chris because he, if the water level gets high, his feet are wet, right? He's right there on the bog.
Sorry, Chris.
Yeah. I guess what I would say, George, to that is I could monitor how that ground in front of that riser looks.
Right.
Keep in touch with Megan, and if I think, I could get a pick through it, then the machine would probably be able to dig it out. I could tell I can sort of monitor when I think that's thawed out enough to clear. Because I did have some tubes in there that are stuck in the ice right now.
I heard.
You guys
Yes.
saw my device. I did take the screen off, but
Okay.
the tubes are stuck in the mud.
Yeah, that'd be great, Chris, if you could let us
Sure.
know and
Okay.
keep monitoring. Okay, awesome. So I think I have like a pretty good idea of what the commission wants, just to be respectful of Sumco and Doria's time. Is there any other questions you have for us or any more guidance that you need? I just want to make sure we're all on the same page here going forward.
I think we're good. I'm just curious what Travis and Doria are going to recommend based upon their measurements. And I haven't seen, is there a report coming out? We're going to talk about what we learned and potential remediations and so on, or where are you headed?
I think that's the next step with, you may have stepped away for that, just getting Weston and Sampson on board to review the findings, make recommendations based on the GPR data.
Right.
Okay,
And at
that
some
would be
point,
great.
we can, if say for instance, we have a conversation with Weston and Sampson, and you know, they say that this area, this area, this area, based on the GPR, looks like it's the most severe. You know, how long will it take Travis, you know, and Sumco to, you know, remediate those? That's the kind of conversation when we can certainly give those folks our impression as to what's the worst of the worst.
All right, I think that makes sense. So, Megan, do we need a motion to adjourn for this meeting right now, or
Yeah,
do we have
I'm
enough
wondering.
information?
I'm wondering just for formality's sake and for the record, if you all wanted to vote on the action plan we made tonight, or maybe you don't think it's necessary.
Melissa hasn't, because I don't know that I understand the action plan per se.
I can describe it again, if you'd like.
Okay,
Because again, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. So then when I'm working on this in the office, I'm sure that I'm doing what's been asked of me. So I got so far that Chris will continue to monitor the cranberry bog all around the dam and will let me know when the soil around that overflow structure is a little thawed. I can contact Travis and let him know, and they can dig that out. And so that means we'll be able to remove some boards and control the water level of the dam so that we don't stress out the dam. And then in the meantime, during this winter time when we can't do any work, I'll reach out to Weston and Sampson and see if they can analyze Doria's data, the GPR data, and let us know what priority areas need to be dealt with to avoid a breach. And then I can return that information to the commission and Sumco, and then we can hopefully get that work done.
good summary. All right,
Okay.
so can I ask the commission to agree to what Megan just defined as the next step?
I move that we authorize Megan to implement the procedure she just described.
I'd second that.
So we'll take a roll call vote. Dan,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye, and thank you.
Sylvia,
Aye, and thank you.
and Brian. Oh, sorry, I think I
I
said it
already
already.
did, but I'll
George.
say thank you. Real said
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you, so
You get
let me
2
say
votes,
thank you.
Brian. Sorry. And the chair votes aye, the motion passes. So can I get a motion to adjourn this session?
So moved.
Before you do, I just want to ask Shane from the LSC is here and he's been watching. I just didn't know if he had something special to say. Sorry to put you on the spot, Shane.
No, I'm all set. That was interesting. Let's see
Okay.
what
Can
happens.
we make a motion to
along the way.
close?
I move we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
And Melissa, and we'll take
Aye.
a roll call.
Oh, sorry.
Sylvia,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. The motion is passed to adjourn.
Have a good night.
Can
Thank
I
you all.
just first, I want to thank Chris, Travis, and Doria for making it to this meeting tonight and being so flexible on scheduling this. And we really appreciate your expertise. That was super interesting. So thank you, Doria, for all the background.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
I'm
Thanks,
available
everyone.
for questions, comments, whatever. So,
Thank you.
Awesome.
okay, we'll talk soon.
Yep.
Take
Will
care.
do. Thank
Be
you.
in touch.
Bye bye.